tension that conveys her helpfulness, generosity, and innocence. But according to Funky, that moment never occurred. She didn't organize any celebrations, a plan, or a gesture. She simply contacted him because she needed a place to go and he happened to be available. That contrast completely alters the tone of her rendition. Distinction between a simple question and a moment of reflection. It makes people reconsider the rest of her story. If she hadn't stated the purpose of the evening, the meaning of everything that followed would likewise seem different. Viewers, notice how easily she avoids talking about the framework of the evening when they rewatch her interview. She talks about feelings, but not the chronology. Fear is what she remembers, but not movement. She can recall the precise moment she woke up, but she is unable to name the persons who were in her near surroundings. The viewers begin to question whether because she displays emotion without giving context. The misunderstanding she described was caused by selective storytelling or memory loss. And there's Funky. His narrative is not emotional, but geographical. It portrays motion in the real world, including where they went, who was there, the group's behavior, and the reasons he felt uneasy. He remembers her call. He remembers the original place. He remembers the desire to continue the evening. He remembers the group dynamic evolving into something he didn't entirely comprehend. His memory forges a path through the incident based on details she never disclosed. There is one variety that floats on the other stroll even when aims aren't stated. While some versions disassemble, others give an overview. While one avoids using names, the other inadvertently shows their combined weight. The more people watch Tamar's interview, the more they notice how deftly she avoids being involved with the people who are physically closest to her that night. However, seem to disappear from her story. She doesn't mention the patrons of the restaurant as she talks about herself, and Funky, she doesn't specify who accompanied her to the next location. She doesn't mention who helped her, who sat beside her, or who remained close enough for Funky. She narrows the view to detect a shift. In mood so closely that the rest of the night is hidden. That absence becomes a type of indication in and of itself, not because she is lying. As more people watch, Tamar's calm explanation begins to take on a new meaning. Compare the two variants. Not dishonest, but defensive. Not dishonest, but deficient. When Funky describes how the group is urging him to continue, the story's tone changes once more. Tamar claims that the evening appeared chaotic and unprepared, as though it had eluded her. But his story shows a night with momentum making choices. Pushing courses and directing energy towards something he was unaware of and didn't want to engage in. Their disparate tones, like to someone describing a fog, are the focal point of the tension. She tells her tale. He says he went into a room full with signs that he didn't completely understand for years. Since discomfort is among the most genuine emotions, people begin to accept his unease. It's an emotion that you don't produce. It arises out of nowhere, sticks in your memory, and then reappears years later when an answer is discovered. There is unresolved raw pressure in his voice at that moment, not anger or retaliation. The plot does not revolve around what happened at the end of the evening, as viewers learn. The interim, the hours that expand in his story and vanish in hers, and the choices she never raises are at its core. He could not disregard the dynamics, the people she omits. The presence that he had not yet been able to understand. Her quiet is the most fascinating part of her story. Not at all silence is suspicious, but there is always a shape. Silent. Thanks to her timeline, everyone may now know exactly which shape Funky's version avoids. Tamar's poise turns into more of a query than a response, because of her conviction in some areas. People now see her entire life through a different lens when both accounts are examined more closely. By the time the audience had watched her interview again, they were aware of her ambiguity in others, her ease with emotive storytelling, and her resistance to structural reality. No one is questioning if Tamar remembered the night. Why, though? Did she only remember the specifics that hid the rest of the picture? When Tamar's version falters, the audience entirely turns their attention to Funky's story. This is because Funky did it, not because he did it confidently. Thus, with the kind of emotional exhaustion that only results from accepting accountability for an act you did not commit. Additionally, viewers realize that they are hearing the perspective of someone who is actually listening, despite the fact that they were producing an attempt not to as soon as he starts giving a systematic, step-by-step account of the night. He explains that he was hesitant to leave the house. He didn't feel like a party. He had nothing to rejoice over. Tamar was at home before he called to request a location to eat. It was not at all sentimental. Nothing took place. No intention, it was just a convenient time that she subsequently transformed into something far more important than it was. As he speaks, viewers can also sense that he is hesitant to join the group. His tone gives the impression that he replied yes out of habit rather than desire. Every part is carried with a sense of exhaustion, which makes it convincing. He talks about how things started to change when he saw guys arrive. He doesn't announce anything significant. He compares it to a puzzle piece that all of a sudden made sense of the tension he had been feeling since the evening had begun. It wasn't a coincidence. It didn't seem spontaneous. The internet picked this up right away for her, but it didn't appear planned for him or the others. Why would Tamar ignore someone who is so vital to its energies if she truly didn't remember that night? ... Her interview suggests that she didn't engage in much social interaction. But Funky's memory paints a different picture, one in which she interacted with people she never acknowledged in public, moved purposefully, was fully aware of her surroundings, and was socially active. Among the group, there was no straying. What they were circling was never mentioned by her. Viewers begin to reevaluate anything. She said as harmless ambiguity. At this point, begins to seem like a deliberate action on her part to be silent in front of the people she was closest to that evening. Protective as opposed to malicious. She appeared to be trying to safeguard the relationships as well as herself. She didn't want the chaos of the following morning to be associated with the world. The gang insisted that he join them somewhere else. And Funky remembers the tension in the room. He remembers feeling outnumbered, but not in a dangerous way. Instead, he felt that he was not at the heart of the plans. He possessed the feeling that he was being drawn into a night that had started long before he arrived. Viewers begin to experience a sense of displacement. Displaced people watch everything. They do research. They experience tightness in their energy. They learn information that the participants are too comfortable to share. Take note, as he didn't belong to the emotional triangle. Without realizing it, he was able to see it from the outside, which is exactly why his description is so potent. While describing the shifts between locations, he read the room. Something that Tamar failed to say throughout the conversation begins to catch the attention of viewers. She never describes the movement of the night. She never provides an explanation for how they relocated. She never identifies the people who were close to her, or their proximity. She depicts the night as a barren realm where things happen without any human interaction. But in Funky's story, people are everywhere, speaking from the heart and exchanging looks, and one individual stands out among them whose presence changes everything. His memory gets more acute when he reflects about the vehicle ride. Not because of the kiss yet, but rather because of the way the mood permeated. He couldn't take his eyes off what the car displayed. People are moving seats, leaning in close, having whispered conversations, and making subtle body language changes that weren't acceptable for a relaxed night out. Tamar recalls it as something she lost control over, while Funky remembers it as one in which she seemed to be in total control. Choosing companions, moves, and groupings. And that has a direct effect on the story's central theme: differentiation. One woman says she doesn't remember anything. One man says he remembers everything he wishes he hadn't. When the internet takes into consideration both narratives, Tamar's chosen adjectives begin to feel intentional. She emphasizes her moments of kindness while omitting any details that might require explanation, including who she was with, how she behaved, and what her conversations were revealed. Meanwhile, Funky's fatigue increases. His voice breaks with remorse at being dragged through a scenario in which he was not involved, rather than rage. The audience can see how long he was held responsible for a night he tried to flee. For what length of time did he refrain from defending himself? How long did he keep quiet while others portrayed him as careless, callous, or irresponsible? Because of this emotional exhaustion, viewers feel that Tamar's interview lacked motivation. Why would she demolish the structure at night? Why would she leave out names? Why would she make things unclear? The occurrences in this manner. To be truthful, to simplify things, to protect herself, and to deflect attention from the one issue she didn't want examined. Viewers have a better understanding of the firmness she maintained. Picture Funky had no intention of leaving the celebration by the time he reaches the point in the evening. When he decides to leave the gathering, he was fleeing. An energy that was not his own. One that he could not understand. An energy that, after his confession, the internet now recognizes with new clarity. The evening was an emotional disaster, according to Tamar. It was a planned evening, according to Funky, but it became something she never intended to convey. The audience begins to realize that neither, as these two stories linger in the air, unfinished and weighty, their assertions hide the reality. It's hidden within the things she dodged. But he finally admitted that when Funky finally takes the back seat, something Tamar never brought up. Everything changes. Her confusion on one side and his caution, on the other hand, may still be related stories today. But like trains on various tracks, the tales begin to diverge from one another. As soon as he recalls the vehicle, he describes instead of being raucous or wild, the car's interior seemed strangely personal. A degree of closeness inappropriate for a casual night out. The type of closeness that enhances an outsider's sense even if they are not yet conscious of their emotions. He remembers where everyone was seated. He remembers the sudden quiet. He remembers how the illumination caught motions that people thought no one observed. Then he discloses the one element that permeates Tamar's whole narrative and for which the audience was unprepared. She wasn't distant. She wasn't confused. She wasn't vacillating between awareness. She didn't actively participate. She was fully present. When he gets to the stage when she is getting closer to Mendeecees, he starts making decisions. There is silence in the room. It's not the dramatic recounting or the exaggerated version the internet made. Rather, it's a quiet narrative of two people acting as though they didn't think anyone was watching. He avoids exaggeration so that viewers can sense the gravity of the situation. He just talks about what he saw. All of Tamar's carefully thought out the interview begins to shift. She remembered the drama. She remembered the pain. She woke up. She was hurt. For the crowd, though, she couldn't remember the one person Funky says was closest to her for the whole evening. This absence turns into a crucial event. Something happened relevant. It has nothing to do with guilt or innocence. It has to. Funky claimed that the silence surrounding a presence changed the evening's trajectory. The audience shifts in their seats. The emotional difference, not the scandal, is the reason he brings up the physical connection. Mendeecees. Tamar described herself as lonely and vulnerable. Funky claims that she feels surrounded, particularly by someone she did not include in her explanation. The outcome is a broken story. Her story is shaped by her loss of control. His decision to leave has influenced his two diametrically opposed approaches to self-defense. But the car ride is about more than love or suspicion. Funky's recollection of the night continues with excruciating clarity. Therefore, it has to do with timing. Tamar's, on the other hand, goes blank. He remembers arriving at her house after that dot. He remembers the group departing. He remembers feeling the airship again. A faint indication that something unsaid was direct in the night. The information that sends the internet into a frenzy is then revealed by him. He didn't go upstairs not because he was irresponsible, not because he didn't care, but because of the chemistry between Tamar and Mendeecees. He felt unnecessary and possibly unwelcome, which allowed him to read the surroundings clearly. Based on their body language and everything that followed, they didn't seem to want to witness whatever they were entering. Was based on that one choice. Tamar's story revolved around her choice to go wake up alone. Getting out of the house turned into the foundation of Funky's defense. Attached to the same instant are two anchors with quite different facts. When he tells who she traveled with, the narrative takes an unchangeable turn. With him upstairs, the internet begins dissecting every facet of Tamar's interview, searching for omissions rather than fabrications. Why didn't she mention the attendees? Why did she say it was a lonely night? Why did Funky leave a blank spot when she says the story becomes clear? The most captivating one feature is that, rather than being influenced by human dynamics, her silence is intentional rather than loud. To preserve the impression of a night destroyed by a single incident, it is delicate and painstakingly created. However, Funky doesn't sound like someone out for revenge. His tone is almost melancholy, as if he's tired of hiding plot points that have been hurting him for far longer than the public realized. He talks as if he wishes he didn't have to reveal all of this, but that he is forced to by his guilt. And that weakness becomes a kind of independent evidence. Funky talked under pressure since Tamar was upset when she spoke. Two emotional states collide. Two emotional states collide. Two tales collide. It's easy for viewers to understand why he remembered the night so well. He talks about the moment he drove off before everything broke apart. He saw the final glimpse of the evening. He looked away from the threshold. She then claimed she couldn't see clearly after passing by. It is not proof of anything. It is not evidence of wrongdoing. Only one of them can reconcile because their stories vary so drastically at this point. They didn't try either. By the time he finishes his description of the car and the doorway, the internet no longer views the situation as complicated. To them, it seems unfair. Her story conceals the people who stood by her side. His story highlights the people that supported her. The hours before the fall are removed from her chronology. The exact hour that everything changed is marked on his timeline. Her quiet protects someone. Someone's candor exposes them. Somewhere in that imbalance is the reality that neither of them wants to accept. Until the following morning, nothing truly breaks. It's not because the internet reacts or that Tamar wakes up in agony, but rather because white wine is served on Wednesdays. The goal of the music is to create a lovely ambiance. Tasha talks about bills, vitamins, Panama, her DJ board, and as if it were just another busy live stream evening. The community laughed at the celebrity disaster. On the surface, everything feels familiar, safe, and light. But there's a shift if, in reality, you watch the tape. She starts to sound tense. The jokes slow down. Her smile doesn't go away, but her energy shifts from playful to surgical. In the chat, names like Tamar, Funky, Mendeecees, and Yandi are already being used excessively, since Funky's live performance went viral. Everyone has been whispering in group conversations and comments, waiting for her to reveal what. After that, the clip rolls. Funky's face is illuminated on screen by that cold, ruthless flowing light. His words sound like a sword even though he is speaking quietly. Emerging from a sheath, he doesn't yell. He doesn't complain. He just drops it. While you were sitting on his lap in that fucking Uber, your ass was kissing. According to Funky, Tamar sat on Mendeecees' lap in the car and kissed him before going upstairs with him and a friend. For a moment, there is silence. Then the internet goes crazy. Timelines of floods with remarks. That wasn't just a fun birthday party night, huh? Following that, Tamar mentioned waking up in a pool of blood, didn't she? Does Yandi's name constantly coming up because of this? Funky screenshots of Tamar's own post about waking up wounded, losing teeth, and forgetting what happened are suddenly sewed alongside claims and Tasha's live response. They replay the timestamps. There is a rewind in the body language. And the times when giggling becomes uncomfortable are frozen. On her set, Tasha reclines in her chair. She narrowed her eyes as though she were staring at a crime board that only she could see. For her, this is more than merely untidy rumors. It's inspiration. It's a chronology. It serves as an alibi. She's also ready to recite the quiet portion out loud this evening. Tamar's own remarks might have had a part in the seemingly harmless evening spent with Mendeecees. The only question is, what's left of that evening when the commercials, jokes, and chaos are taken out? The environment, as soon as the hook dissolves, it entirely shifts. Because the audience isn't just reacting to Funky's irritation anymore. The tension that permeates the room before anyone speaks suddenly changes from curiosity. They're going over Tamar's interview again, question by question, searching for the passages they didn't realize were missing. Her interview seems harmless at first. The lighting is tidy, the tone is serene, and there isn't any real concern, only a touch of vulnerability. It's about how she felt pained when she awoke, how she didn't understand what had happened, and how she felt fear instead of clarity. It appears genuine and initial